The cargo bay of Void's Edge Station smelled like rust and old metal. Hundreds of species walked through its corridors every day. Traders, smugglers, soldiers, and thieves all shared the same air. It was the kind of place where nobody asked questions and everybody watched their own back. Kang Taiho lifted another heavy crate and placed it on the transport cart. His movements were slow and careful. He wore simple gray work clothes that were too big for his thin frame. His black hair was messy and fell over his tired eyes. He looked like a man who had given up on life a long time ago. The Valorians controlled this station. They were tall creatures with 4 arms and skin like dark blue leather. Their eyes glowed yellow, and their teeth were sharp like knives. They believed they were the strongest species in the galaxy. They believed other races existed only to serve them. And humans? To the Valorians, humans were nothing. Weak, soft, pathetic little creatures from a small planet in a forgotten corner of space. Taiho pushed his cart through the busy corridor. Other workers moved out of his way without looking at him. He was invisible here. Just another human doing dirty work that nobody else wanted to do. A group of Valorian soldiers stood near the corridor entrance. They wore black armor and carried plasma rifles on their backs. When they saw Taiho approaching, they smiled at each other. It was not a kind smile. The one in front was called Dren. He was the second in command of station security. He was also known for his hatred of humans. Some said he had lost family members in the border wars with Earth decades ago. Others said he was simply cruel by nature. Either way, he enjoyed making humans suffer. Dren stepped directly into Taiho's path. The cart stopped. Taiho kept his eyes on the ground. He said nothing. "Look at this," Dren said loudly so everyone could hear. "The little human thinks he can use our corridor." The other soldiers laughed. Aliens walking past slowed down to watch. This kind of entertainment was common on Void's Edge. Dren reached out with one of his 4 arms and knocked a crate off Taiho's cart. It crashed to the floor and broke open. Machine parts scattered everywhere. Taiho looked at the mess. Then he slowly bent down and began picking up the pieces. His face showed nothing. No anger, no fear, no shame, just emptiness. "Not even going to say sorry?" Dren kicked another crate off the cart. "Your kind truly has no pride." More laughter from the soldiers. A young woman watched from across the corridor. Her name was Yuna. She was an engineer who maintained the station's power systems. Like Taiho, she was human. Like Taiho, she kept her head down to survive here. But unlike Taiho, she still had fire in her eyes. She wanted to help him. She wanted to scream at the Valorians to leave him alone. But she knew better. Fighting back only made things worse. She had seen what happened to humans who fought back. Dren grabbed Taiho by the collar and lifted him slightly off the ground. The human was light, too light. He felt like he weighed nothing at all. "You know what I hate most about humans?" Dren brought his face close to Taiho's. His breath smelled like rotting meat. "You are so weak, but you refuse to die. You spread across the galaxy like insects. No matter how many we crush, more of you appear." Taiho finally looked up. His eyes met Dren's. For just a moment, something flickered in those dark human eyes, something cold, something ancient, something that made Dren want to let go and step back. But the moment passed so quickly that Dren thought he imagined it. He threw Taiho to the ground and laughed. "Pathetic," he said. "Truly pathetic." The soldiers walked away, still laughing. The crowd lost interest and continued with their business. Yuna finally rushed over to help Taiho collect his scattered cargo. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Taiho nodded. He did not speak. "You should report them. There are laws even here." Taiho almost smiled at that. Almost. Instead, he just shook his head and continued picking up machine parts. Yuna helped him in silence. She noticed his hands. They were rough and covered with old scars. Strange scars. Not the kind you get from cargo work. These looked like combat wounds, burns, cuts, marks that told stories of violence. She wanted to ask about them, but something told her not to. When the cart was loaded again, Taiho gave her a small nod of thanks. Then he pushed his cart away and disappeared into the maze of corridors. Yuna watched him go. Who was he? Why did he accept such treatment without fighting back? Was he broken? Was he afraid? Or was he something else entirely? In a dark corner of the cargo bay, an old alien trader sat on a pile of crates. He was a Morvian, a species known for their long memories and longer lifespans. He had watched the entire scene with growing terror. His hands were shaking. His 3 eyes were wide with recognition. He had seen that human before. Not here. Not on this station. It was 15 years ago, on a burning planet, surrounded by the bodies of Valorian soldiers. Hundreds of bodies. Thousands. The old trader reached for his communication device. Then he stopped. Who would believe him? Who would believe that the most dangerous human alive was working as a cargo handler on a lawless station? He looked toward the corridor where Taiho had disappeared. It cannot be, he whispered to himself. The Reaper is dead. Everyone says the Reaper is dead. But deep in his old heart, he knew the truth. The Reaper was not dead. The Reaper was waiting. 3 days passed on Void's Edge Station. Yuna found herself watching the silent cargo handler whenever their paths crossed. There was something about him that she could not understand, something that did not fit. She started eating her meals in the lower cargo bay where Taiho took his breaks. At first, he ignored her completely. He would sit alone in the corner, eating simple food from a metal container, staring at nothing. But Yuna was stubborn. She kept coming back. She kept sitting nearby. She kept trying to talk to him. "My name is Yuna," she said on the 4th day. "I fix the power systems here. Boring work, but it pays." Taiho looked at her for a moment. Then he returned to his food. "You do not talk much, do you?" He shook his head slightly. "That is okay. I talk enough for both of us." And she did. She told him about her life, about growing up on a small human colony, about how she came to this station looking for better work, about how she missed the green forests of her home world and the smell of rain on warm soil. Taiho listened. He never interrupted. He never asked questions. But she noticed that he listened, really listened. His eyes would focus on her when she spoke, and sometimes, just sometimes, the corners of his mouth would move like he wanted to smile. On the 7th day, he finally spoke. "Why?" he asked. His voice was quiet and rough, like he had not used it in a very long time. "Why what?" "Why do you sit with me?" Yuna thought about it. "Because everyone deserves a friend, even silent cargo handlers." Taiho looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded and returned to his food. But this time he sat a little closer to her. Meanwhile, things on the station were getting worse. Commander Rova, the head of Valorian security, announced a new law. All humans on the station had to pay a weekly protection fee. Those who could not pay would face punishment. The announcement came through every speaker on the station. Rova's voice was cold and proud. "Humans exist on this station because we allow it," he said. "You will pay for that privilege. This is not negotiable." Yuna felt sick when she heard it. The fee was more than half her weekly pay. She could barely survive as it was. How could she pay this? That evening, she found Taiho in the cargo bay and told him about the new law. "We have to do something," she said. "We have to fight back." Taiho shook his head slowly. "Why not? Are you afraid?" He looked at her. His eyes were sad but calm. "Standing up is not always about making noise." "Then what is it about?" He did not answer. He just returned to his work, lifting crates that should have been too heavy for his thin body. She noticed that he lifted them easily, like they weighed nothing at all. The next day, Captain Nari found Yuna in the engineering section. Nari was a human woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes. She ran a small cargo ship called the Morning Star and had been trading in this sector for 20 years. "You need to leave this station," Nari said quietly. "Soon." "What? Why?" "Something bad is coming. I can feel it." Nari looked around to make sure nobody was listening. "The Valorians are pushing too hard. They want a reaction. They want an excuse to hurt people. I cannot just leave. I have no money. I have nowhere to go." Nari pressed a small data chip into her hand. "This has coordinates to a safe colony. When things go wrong here, find my ship. I will take you there." "Why are you helping me?" Nari smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Because I was young once. Because I remember what it feels like to be trapped." That night, Yuna could not sleep. She walked through the quiet corridors of the station until she found herself in the cargo bay again. Taiho was there, sitting in the darkness, looking at the stars through a small window. She sat next to him. "Do you ever think about leaving?" she asked. "Sometimes." "Why do you stay?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I am tired of running. I thought I could disappear here, become nobody, just exist." "What were you running from?" He did not answer. A shadow moved in the doorway. Yuna turned and saw the old Morvian trader standing there. His 3 eyes were fixed on Taiho. His hands were shaking. "I know who you are," the old alien said. His voice was barely a whisper. Taiho did not move. The trader stepped closer to Yuna. 15 years ago, the Valorian Empire sent 100 warships to destroy a human colony called New Busan. They had 10,000 soldiers, the finest warriors in the galaxy. Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard stories about New Busan. Everyone had. "Only one message ever came back," the trader continued. "The Admiral's last words before every ship went silent. He said, 'He walks among us. The Reaper walks among us. Gods help us.' Then nothing. Every ship, every soldier. Gone." "That is just a story," Yuna said. "A legend. One person cannot destroy a fleet." The old trader's eyes never left Taiho. "It is not a story. I was there. I was a merchant on the edge of the system. I saw the aftermath. I saw what one human did to an entire army." Yuna turned to Taiho. He was still looking at the stars. His face showed nothing. "The scar," the trader said, "behind your left ear. You got it when a Valorian blade cut too close. I saw the body camera footage from a dead soldier. I saw your face." Taiho finally moved. He turned and looked at the old alien with empty eyes. "You should forget what you saw," Taiho said, "for your own peace." The trader backed away. His whole body was trembling now. "The Reaper," he whispered. "The Reaper is real." Then he ran. Yuna stared at Taiho. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. "Is it true?" she asked. "Are you him?" Taiho stood up slowly. He looked old suddenly, tired beyond words. "I am just a cargo handler," he said. "Nothing more." He walked away into the darkness, leaving Yuna alone with her fear and her questions and the cold light of distant stars. The collection day came on a cold morning. Valorian soldiers marched through every section of Void's Edge Station. They went door to door, demanding payment from every human they could find. Those who paid were marked and left alone. Those who could not pay were dragged into the corridors. Yuna watched from her small room as a family across the hall was pulled out by 4 soldiers. The father tried to explain that he needed more time. The soldiers broke his arm and threw him against the wall. His wife screamed. His children cried. Nobody came to help. This was the new order on the station. This was life under Valorian rule. Yuna had enough money for this week. Barely. She had sold most of her personal things just to afford the protection fee. But next week? Next month? She did not know how she would survive. She thought about what the old trader had said, about the Reaper, about Taiho. It could not be true. That quiet, thin man who never raised his voice? That sad cargo handler who let Dren throw him to the ground without fighting back? He could not be the legendary monster who destroyed an entire fleet. But then she remembered his hands, those scars, the way he lifted heavy crates like they were empty boxes, the way his eyes sometimes flickered with something dark and cold. She shook her head. It did not matter. Even if the stories were true, Taiho had made it clear that he wanted no part of this fight. He wanted to be invisible. He wanted to be left alone. The collection squad reached her corridor around midday. Yuna paid her fee and received a mark on her hand. The soldiers barely looked at her. She was not worth their attention. But as they moved on, she heard shouting from the lower levels. She recognized the voice. It was Dren. She should have walked away. She should have gone back to her room and locked the door. But something made her follow the sound. She found them in the maintenance corridor near the cargo bay. Dren was there with 6 soldiers. They had surrounded a small group of humans who could not pay their fees. Old people, workers, nobody important. And there was Taiho, standing at the edge of the group. He had been caught in the sweep while moving cargo. Dren was in a good mood. He walked among the humans, touching their faces with his clawed fingers, enjoying their fear. "Look at you," he said. "So small, so weak. How did your species ever survive?" Nobody answered. Nobody dared. Then Dren saw Yuna watching from the corridor entrance. His yellow eyes lit up with cruel joy. "You," he said, pointing at her. "The engineer girl. Come here." Yuna's legs felt like stone. She wanted to run, but she knew it would only make things worse. She walked forward slowly. Dren grabbed her arm and pulled her into the center of the group. His grip was like iron. She could feel her bones grinding together. "I checked the records," Dren said. "You have been spending time with our silent friend here?" He nodded toward Taiho. "Sharing meals, talking. Some might say you are too friendly with this trash." "Please," Yuna said. "I paid my fee. I have the mark. The fee is for protection. But you have been disrespectful to me. Remember when I was teaching your friend his place? You looked at me like you wanted to kill me." Dren smiled. That kind of disrespect has its own price. He raised one of his 4 hands, his claws extended, sharp and black. "I think I will take one of your eyes as payment." Yuna tried to pull away, but Dren held her tight. The other soldiers laughed. The captured humans looked away, too afraid to watch. Then a voice spoke, quiet, calm, like ice breaking on a frozen lake. "Release." Everyone turned. Taiho had stepped forward. He stood 5 meters away from Dren, his hands at his sides, his eyes fixed on the Valorian's clawed hand. Dren laughed. "The silent cargo handler speaks. Did you want to say goodbye to your friend's eye?" "Release her," Taiho said again. "Now." The laughter died. There was something in Taiho's voice that had not been there before, something that made the air feel heavy and cold. Dren's smile faded slightly, then returned, forced. "Or what? What will you do, little human?" Taiho said nothing. He just looked at Dren with those empty eyes, waiting. Dren felt something he had never felt before when looking at a human. He felt doubt. He felt the smallest touch of fear, and that made him angry. "Hold him," he ordered his soldiers. 2 Valorians moved toward Taiho. They reached for his arms. What happened next took less than 2 seconds. Taiho moved like water, like shadow, like death itself. The first soldier's arm bent backward with a sound like breaking wood. Before he could scream, Taiho's elbow hit his throat and silenced him forever. The second soldier grabbed for his weapon. Taiho's hand found his face, and his head hit the metal wall hard enough to dent it. Both Valorians fell. They did not get up. The corridor went completely silent. Dren stared at Taiho with wide eyes. His grip on Yuna loosened in shock. Taiho walked forward. His movement was slow now, deliberate. He was not attacking anymore. He was just walking toward Dren like a man taking a peaceful stroll. But with each step, the temperature in the corridor seemed to drop. The other soldiers backed away without realizing they were doing it. Taiho stopped in front of Dren. "I said release." This time, Dren let go of Yuna's arm. She stumbled away, her heart pounding. Dren tried to speak, tried to threaten, tried to call for backup, but his voice would not work. He could only stare into those dark human eyes and see his own death reflected in them. Taiho grabbed Dren's wrist, the same wrist that had been raised to take Yuna's eye. He squeezed. The bones cracked. Dren screamed. "You will never touch her again," Taiho said. "You will never touch any human on this station again. Do you understand?" Dren fell to his knees, crying in pain, nodding desperately. More soldiers arrived. 10 of them. 20. They filled the corridor with weapons drawn. Taiho released Dren and raised his hands slowly. But he was not surrendering. He was showing them he had a choice. He could fight. He could kill them all. But he was choosing not to. Commander Rova pushed through the crowd. His face was twisted with rage. "Seize him," he commanded. "Take him to detention. Tomorrow, we execute this animal in the public square." Soldiers grabbed Taiho roughly. He let them. As they dragged him away, he looked back at Yuna. For the first time since she had known him, he smiled. It was a gentle smile, a sad smile. "Stay near Captain Nari's ship," he said. "Do not leave until dawn. Promise me." "I promise," she whispered. They took him away. Rova stared at the 2 dead soldiers on the ground. He had ruled this station for 5 years. He had crushed rebellions. He had executed hundreds of criminals. But something in his gut told him this was different. This human was different. He pushed the feeling away. Tomorrow, the human would die, and everything would return to normal. He was wrong. Nothing would ever be normal again. Night cycle began at 2100 hours. Yuna sat in the common room of Captain Nari's ship, the Morning Star. Her hands would not stop shaking. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Taiho being dragged away by the soldiers. Captain Nari sat across from her, cleaning an old plasma pistol. "You should try to sleep," Nari said. "How can I sleep? They are going to kill him tomorrow." Nari was quiet for a moment. Then she put down her weapon and looked at Yuna with serious eyes. "Tell me exactly what happened. Everything," Yuna told her. About the collection. About Dren. About how Taiho had moved faster than anything she had ever seen. About 2 soldiers dead in less than 2 seconds. Nari listened without interrupting. When Yuna finished, the old captain let out a long breath. "I was afraid of this," she said. "You know something. About him. About what he is." Nari nodded slowly. "I served in the Terran Defense Force 20 years ago. I was a young officer then, full of pride and belief in humanity's place in the galaxy." She paused. "Then the Valorian Empire declared war on our outer colonies." "The border wars," Yuna said. Everyone knew about the border wars. Yes, we were losing badly. The Valorians were too strong, too many. We could not match their fleets or their armies. Nari's eyes went distant, seeing old memories. Then the military started a secret program. They took volunteers, soldiers who had nothing left to lose, and they turned them into something new. What kind of something? Weapons, living weapons. They trained them in ways I cannot describe, pushed their bodies and minds beyond human limits. Most of them died during training. The few who survived became the deadliest things humanity had ever created. Yuna felt cold. Operation Reaper. Nari looked surprised. "Where did you hear that name?" An old trader on the station. He said Tai-Ho was the Reaper who destroyed the fleet at New Busan. Nari was silent for a long moment. Then she stood up and walked to the ship's viewport. I read the classified reports after I retired. Clearance level 9. What happened at New Busan was not supposed to be possible. 100 Valorian warships, 10,000 soldiers, the finest army in their empire. She turned back to Yuna. One man killed them all. Every single one. In 6 hours. Yuna could not speak. They dropped him alone onto the planet's surface. No weapons, no armor, no support, just him. Nari shook her head. When our rescue ships arrived, they found 10,000 Valorian corpses. Some were still holding their weapons. None of them had fired a single shot. He killed them so fast, they never had time to react. That is impossible, Yuna whispered. I thought so too, until tonight. Until you described how he moved. The lights flickered. Both women froze. The lights flickered again, then went out completely. Emergency power activated, filling the ship with dim red light. Through the viewport, they could see the entire station had gone dark. Only the emergency lights remained, casting blood-red shadows everywhere. Then the alarms started. Loud, screaming sirens that echoed through every corridor. And then the alarm stopped. Complete silence. Nari grabbed her pistol. It has begun. What has begun? He is out. Yuna moved to the viewport. The station's corridors were visible through the transparent walls. Everything was still. Everything was quiet. Then she saw movement. A Valorian soldier ran past the ship, his 4 arms pumping, his yellow eyes wide with terror. He was screaming, but no sound came through the thick glass. Something moved in the shadows behind him, something fast. The soldier was there one moment and gone the next, dragged backward into the darkness. More soldiers appeared, running, shooting at nothing, shooting at shadows. Their plasma bolts lit up the corridors in brief flashes of blue light. In those flashes, Yuna saw him. Tai-Ho. He moved between the soldiers like smoke, like a ghost. She could barely track him, even when she knew where to look. One moment, he was behind a soldier, and the next, that soldier was falling. He did not fight them. He flowed through them, death made into human form. Commander Rova's voice suddenly crackled over the station intercom. All units to the command deck! All units to the command deck! He is just one human, one human! We have 40 soldiers on this station. Converge and eliminate the target. His voice was shaking. The mighty commander who had ruled this station with iron claws was afraid. The intercom stayed on. Yuna could hear distant sounds through it. Gunfire, screaming, running footsteps. Then Rova's voice again higher now. Where is he? Where is he? He was just here. Check the vents. Check the vents. A crash. More screaming. No, no, stay back. I am Commander Rova of the Valorian Empire. You cannot do this. We have a treaty with Earth. There will be war. Tai-Ho's voice came through the intercom. Quiet, calm. The same voice that had said so little for so many months. There is no treaty here. This is Void's Edge, lawless space. You made sure everyone knew that. Please, I will let the humans go. I will pay compensation. I will do whatever you want. You had a chance to be merciful. You chose cruelty. I was just following orders. The High Command told us to pressure the humans. It was not personal. It became personal when you touched her. Silence on the intercom. Then wet sounds. Terrible sounds. Sounds that Yuna would hear in her nightmares for the rest of her life. Then nothing. The intercom clicked off. Nari let out a breath she had been holding. Her pistol was still raised, pointing at the airlock door. Is it over? Yuna asked. I do not know. They waited. Minutes passed. Hours. The station remained silent and dark. At some point, Yuna fell asleep. She did not mean to. Her body simply gave up and shut down from exhaustion and fear. When she woke, light was streaming through the viewport. Dawn cycle had begun. The station's main power was back on. Captain Nari was still awake, still watching the door. "Anything?" Yuna asked. Nari shook her head. "Nothing. No announcements. No soldiers. No one has passed by the ship since the power came back." Yuna stood up slowly. Her legs were weak, but she forced herself to walk to the airlock controls. "What are you doing?" Nari asked. "He told me to stay until dawn. It is dawn now." "It might not be safe." Yuna looked back at the old captain. "He saved my life. He killed 40 soldiers for me. For us. The least I can do is see if he survived." Nari hesitated. Then she nodded and raised her pistol. Together then. They opened the airlock and stepped into the station. The corridors were empty. Completely empty. No bodies, no blood. Just scattered weapons and pieces of armor lying on the floor like fallen leaves. And drag marks. Long scratch marks on the metal floor, leading toward the airlocks, toward the cold vacuum of space. Yuna and Nari walked through the ghost station, following the silence. They found him in the cargo bay. Taiho sat on a crate in his usual spot, cleaning his hands with a rag. His work clothes were torn and dirty. His face was tired. His eyes were old, but he was alive. Yuna ran to him. "You are alive?" she said. "You are actually alive." Taiho looked up at her. A small smile crossed his face. "I told you to wait until dawn. You kept your promise." "What happened?" "Where are the soldiers?" Taiho glanced toward the airlock at the far end of the bay. Yuna followed his gaze. The airlock was closed now, but she understood. 47 Valorian soldiers. Gone. Sent into the void. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you finally fight?" Taiho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with years and sorrow. "Because I remembered something I tried to forget. Who I was. What I was made to do." He looked at her. "And because they crossed a line that I could not ignore." "What line?" "They touched my people. They hurt my people." His eyes softened. "They hurt you." Yuna did not know what to say, so she said nothing. She just sat down next to him in that quiet cargo bay and watched the stars through the small window. The Reaper was real, and for the first time in 15 years. He had woken up. Word spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Something had happened at Void's Edge Station, something terrible. An entire Valorian security force had disappeared in a single night. 47 soldiers. Gone. No distress signal, no survivors. Only empty armor and weapons scattered across silent corridors. The stories came in pieces at first. A trading ship that had passed through the system reported seeing dozens of bodies floating in the void outside the station. A communication relay picked up fragments of Commander Rova's final transmission. The words, "He walks among us," echoed through military channels across 3 sectors. The Valorian Empire demanded answers. They sent investigators to the station. When those investigators returned, they said very little. But the fear in their eyes said everything. One human had done this. One quiet, unremarkable human who had worked as a cargo handler for 2 years. A man that everyone had mocked. A man that soldiers had pushed around and laughed at. That man was now the most wanted being in the galaxy. But nobody on Void's Edge talked to the investigators. The aliens who lived there suddenly developed very poor memories. They had seen nothing. They knew nothing. They could not even remember what the cargo handler looked like, because they understood something the Valorians did not. The Reaper had protected them. The Reaper had freed them from tyranny. And the Reaper was still out there somewhere, watching, waiting. Nobody wanted to be the one who betrayed him. 3 days after the incident, Yuna found Taiho packing a small bag in the cargo bay. He moved slowly, like an old man, though she knew now that he could move faster than thought when he needed to. "You are leaving?" she said. He nodded. "I have to." They will send more soldiers soon. Larger forces. I need to be gone before that happens. Where will you go? Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can disappear again. He smiled sadly. That is what I am good at. Disappearing. Yuna felt something twist in her chest. After everything that had happened, she did not want him to leave. She did not want to go back to being alone on this station. Take me with you, she said. Taiho stopped packing. He looked at her with surprise. You do not want that. You do not know what it means to travel with me. I know exactly what it means. I know who you are. What you are. Yuna stepped closer. And I do not care. You are my friend. The first real friend I have had in years. I am not letting you disappear. Taiho was silent for a long moment. His dark eyes studied her face, looking for doubt or fear. He found neither. It will be dangerous, he said finally. The Valorians will hunt me. Anyone near me will be in danger. I was in danger here too. At least with you, I will have someone watching my back. A small laugh escaped Taiho's lips. It was a strange sound, rough and unused, like he had forgotten how to laugh and was only now remembering. You are stubborn, he said. I am Korean, she replied. We invented stubborn. Captain Nari appeared in the doorway. She had been listening. If you two are finished with your moment, I should tell you that my ship has room for 2 more crew members. She crossed her arms. A cargo handler and an engineer would be useful. Taiho looked at her. You would take that risk? Knowing what I am? Nari shrugged. I am 60 years old. I have been running cargo through dangerous space for most of my life. What is a little more danger? She paused. Besides, I served humanity during the border wars. I saw what the Valorians did to our colonies, the children they killed, the cities they burned. Her eyes hardened. I am glad someone finally made them pay. Taiho considered this for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, but there are rules. No fighting unless there is no other choice. No killing unless lives depend on it. I did not survive this long by being reckless. Fair enough, Nari said. We leave in 1 hour. The station master has kindly decided not to charge us any docking fees. She smiled. Strange how generous people become when they find out who your friends are. An hour later, the Morning Star lifted off from Void's Edge Station. Yuna stood at the viewport and watched the station grow smaller behind them. It looked peaceful now, normal, like nothing had happened there. But she knew the truth. She would always know. Taiho came to stand beside her. Do you regret it? She asked. Waking up the Reaper? He thought about the question carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that those soldiers had to die. He paused. But I do not regret protecting you. Protecting our people. That is what I was made for. That is the only purpose that makes sense to me. The old trader said you killed 10,000 soldiers at New Busan. Is that true? Yes. How do you live with that? Taiho was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft and tired. I was a soldier once, a young man with nothing left to lose. My family died in a Valorian raid when I was 17. My colony was destroyed. Everyone I loved was gone. He looked out at the stars. The military found me. They gave me a choice, die meaningless, or become something that could protect others from the same fate. I chose to become a weapon. And New Busan? The colony had 50,000 civilians. Half of them died before I arrived. The Valorians were taking their time. They wanted to make an example. His jaw tightened. I made an example too. A different kind. Yuna did not know what to say. She could not imagine carrying that weight, that many deaths, that much blood. After New Busan, I disappeared. I was supposed to return to base for more missions. More killing, But I could not do it anymore. I ran. I hid. I spent 15 years trying to be nobody. And now? Taiho turned to look at her. His eyes were different now. Still sad, still tired. But there was something else there, too. Something like hope. Now, I have something I have not had in a very long time. Friends. A place where I belong. He almost smiled. Maybe that is worth protecting, too. A communication alert beeped on the ship's console. Nari's voice came over the internal speakers. You two should see this. They moved to the bridge. On the main screen, a Valorian diplomatic vessel was approaching Void's Edge station. It was a large ship, armed with heavy weapons, carrying the flags of the High Command. Nari pointed at her sensor display. Watch! The Valorian ship slowed as it approached the station. Then it stopped. Then, slowly, it began to turn away. They scanned the station, Nari said. They know what happened there, and they are choosing not to investigate. They are afraid, Yuna said. No, Taiho shook his head. They are being smart. They know I might still be there. They know what happens to Valorians who come looking for me. He watched the ship retreat into the darkness of space. They will not forget. They will not forgive. But they will think twice before they hurt humans again. The Morning Star turned away from the station and set course for the outer systems, toward new stars, new possibilities. Yuna looked at Taiho. What happens now? Now we live. We work. We keep our heads down. He glanced at her. And if anyone threatens our people again, we remind them why humanity survived when so many other species did not. And what reason is that? Taiho walked back toward the cargo bay. His steps were quiet. His presence was calm. He looked like nobody important, just another tired man going to do honest work. But Yuna knew better now. She had seen what hid beneath that silence. At the doorway, Taiho paused and looked back at her. Humans are patient, he said. We endure. We wait. We let others mock us and push us around. We let them think we are weak. His eyes flickered with that cold, ancient darkness. But we are never truly silent. We are just waiting for the right moment. And when that moment comes? Taiho smiled. It was not a warm smile. Then they learn why the galaxy should have been afraid of us all along. He disappeared into the shadows of the ship. Yuna stood alone on the bridge, looking out at the endless stars. Somewhere out there, Valorian commanders were reading reports about Void's Edge. Somewhere, military strategists were updating their files on human capabilities. Somewhere, the story of the Reaper was spreading from station to station, planet to planet, warning everyone who heard it. Do not mock the quiet human. Do not push the silent one too far, because you never know which one is waiting. You never know which one is the Reaper. And by the time you find out, it is already too late.